Alright, y'all shalom, sister Mama Mavis. Yeah, y'all shalom, big brother. Big brother. All the big brothers coming in here. Y'all shalom, family, y'all shalom.
He gives me joy inside my matter. Come on now. Yeah. That's right. Yashalam, love move. Come on, Akia. So next week on Thursday, listen, Yashalam, everybody. Yah gives us joy inside the matter, is what the song was saying. He gives us joy inside of the matter. No matter what's happening, his joy is prevalent and is present. Let's keep liking, let's keep sharing, let's make sure that we get, because this is not the regular page, right? So let's make sure that we get our family on the page, because they weren't going to let us go live until 12:59 because of me, riding in the car yesterday. So that there's that restriction, the 24-hour restriction. With that being said, this is not my day. This is Men's Day. I ain't got nothing to say. Minister Stephen had some regulations that he had to come up on with TikTok, so we just working it the way we working it, and we'll have it all figured out by next Thursday so that we can go through on his page, because we want the men to have the platform. That's all. That's it. That's all. I'm shutting up now. Minister Stephen, it's all you.
All right. Shalom, fam. Y'all shalom. Praying all is well. Got something exciting going. So I'm outside. So just let me know if the noise gets too much. I can put my earbuds in. I can get everything situated. Yeah, but brother, everything was fine. I just had to do some verifications and things like that, and it's gonna take 24 hours for everything to verify. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about this. But yep. Praying all is well with everybody. Yeah, that way. That'll work. We're gonna start out with prayer, right? We're gonna bring it in with prayer. Yeah, we come before you today to just thank you to die for another beautiful day, another rising that we could come together and am I still breaking up?
You sound good to me.
Okay.
You sound good.
All right. Yeah, pray. Let's go back into prayer. Yeah, we come before you yet again to thank you for everything, to die for another rising, another beautiful rising. With everything going on, that we're still able to come on here and still give out a great word. And may the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. And may Ravak speak what she and you have planned to be spoken. Hashem Yahweh, Hashem Yahashphai, Hashem Ravak HaKodash. Aman, and Aman. All right. So let's see where we're going to start. It's a lot. It feels like a lot, but it's not really. But I'm just going to let Ravak speak. So let's go. So we're going to start with a recap from the beginning. The way it began, we're going to bring it all the way back. So that way, I promise you, by the time all this ends, we're going to be very familiar with this story, right? All right. So we're gonna start with Moses or Moshe, right? So we're gonna start with Moses. Often, a man run into the wilderness, right? We can find out in Jasher. He ran out to the wilderness, and in the wilderness, he ran into a king. He ended up fighting a war for another king, right? After that, he ended up being the leader of that said area where that king was. After that, he left peacefully, went back into the wilderness, ended up at the house of Ruel, ended up imprisoned for 10 years, right? Still praising Yah and everything like that in that nature. After that, he was linked in with his wife, left again. After that, he was tending a flock. One ran away from the flock. He went to chase that, met at the burning bush, got his plan, got his topic, everything like that. Yah said, "You're gonna go free my people." He says, "Boom, all right, we're gonna go free my people," right? Then fast forward, after the plagues and everything, they leave Kemet, which is Egypt, right? Yah Shalom, Minister, Apostle, all that, big sis. So we get through, right? And it's as a whole. So the people leave out of Kemet as a whole, right? He says, "Yeah, we're gonna escape. Everybody's on the wagon, so we're gonna head out." And we get through to a place where a lot of atoning had to be happened, a lot of the moving through and the passing over of the Ravak HaKodash, and then there's a circumcision, right? So we get to the point of Joshua, right? There we go. Yeah, we're here. All right. So we get to the point of Joshua, right? And Moses takes the rock, passes it to Joshua. Joshua catches it, right? He's preparing to lead the people over to Jordan, right? So Moses passes the rock to Joshua. Boom. Joshua hits the Hezi, right? Joshua hits the Hezi. We go over crossing of Jordan. He gets instructions. We have Reuben, we have Gad, we have half of Manasseh, right? They're told to go across with the people in front of them, so that way they're able to go into Jordan safely. They send spies first, cross Jordan to Jericho, get with Rahab, right? They get with Rahab. Rahab gives fear, respect to the Most High. They give a scarlet rope representing promise, protection, right? They go back, says everything's good. Everything's Tabah. We go back to Jericho. Boom. Walk around in silence in Jericho, right? Next thing you know, we give a shout. After the foundation is searched out and shaken up, we give a shout. Next thing you know, boom, Jericho crumbles. All right. After that, before that, there was an intimate circumcision, right? There's only a certain group of people, right? They can start out as a whole in Kemet, right? Go over to the Jordan, it's a little bit smaller, right? And then we keep going after that into the promise. All right, that's where we are right now. Remember last week we talked about in chapter 7 how they were led to a place, right? One sec. But they were led to a place to affix themselves back to righteousness in chapter 7. Now in chapter 8, we're led to continue that process. Now they are to draw out those who weren't righteous, standing outside of righteousness, which is Ai or I, and those who are in the place of Babel, a place that was associated with righteousness, right? Amen. So being associated with righteousness is like hovering around it, right? And then a place that's associated with wickedness is hovering around it. If you're not in tune with righteousness and you're just hovering around righteousness, that's essentially wickedness because you're not really touching righteousness. Here's righteousness. They were associated with it in Bethel, but they weren't really righteous, right? So they had to deal with the righteous refining process. They were led into the wilderness. Wilderness is often associated with something that is, it has a negative connotation for some reason. But really, if you look at it, look at the wilderness behind me, it's a more sense of protection. It's a place of refining. It's a place that even Yehoshaphat had to go into the wilderness. And when he came in this form, right? And he was tested by the adversary. And when he had to say, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word proceeded out the mouth of Elohim. Then you have, thou shalt worship Yahweh, your Elohim, and him only shalt thou serve. That's in Matthew 4, right? In the wilderness, it's a place that's covered. It's a place that's protected. It's a place that is refined. It's a place where you're made anew, right? So I want to try to get away from our wilderness, oh no, but it's really a place that you have to go on this walk. Amen. So, with all that being said, we're going to get into Joshua chapter 8. We're going to start there, and we're going to jump right in. All right? So, in Joshua chapter 8, it starts out and it says, after they raised up a heap of stones. Hold on, let me get this dog inside. 1 second. Kobe Jr., I like them jokes. I love them jokes. All right, so we got, chapter 7. We ended up in chapter 7 where they had the refining process where Achan had to be separated, right? Achan had to be refined, right? We're going to watch what we kind of use the words, right? And after that, after the refining process, after getting back affixed to righteousness, Joshua goes back essentially into prayer, because that's what we started in chapter 8, verse 1, right? Joshua is talking to Yahweh. And when we're talking to Yahweh, that's essentially an area of prayer. That's essentially petitioning. That's essentially a back and forth thing. That's why I say it's prayer. Doesn't specifically say that, but we can see and glean that that's where he is at this point, right? And we're going to start in chapter 8, and it says, And Yahweh said unto Joshua, Fear not, neither be thou dismayed, because they've done what they need to do. They've taken out the thing that was a curse, not acceptable, and now they're able to progress. So now you're at the point of fearing not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise and go up to Ai, right? And the people of war, again, would include Reuben, Gad, half of Manasseh. That's in chapter 1 of Joshua, you can see there. These are the people that are supposed to lead first into the promise, right? Arise and go up to Ai. See now that you've done all that I have given thy hand to the king, given into thy hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil, right, thereof, and the cattle thereof shall ye take for a prey unto yourselves. Lay thee in ambush for the city behind it. Now, we're going to stop right there. Now, when we talk about, I want to zoom in on that word ambush, right? Right? So that word ambush, it stuck out to me. So, of course, when it sticks out, I'm going to go into the definition of things, right? We're going to get everything straight. So, when we're talking about ambush, boom, boom. Ambush is a place that involves lying in wait in a concealed. I want you to look at the wilderness as I'm talking about this. It involves lying in wait in a concealed position, a covered position. So the wilderness isn't such a thing that's supposed to be a negative connotation. It's such a thing that we should not be afraid of at all. It's such a thing that we should see that's going to have to come around eventually. It's a thing that when we go into, we come out not the same. So it's a place of rejoicing, right? In a sense. So laying in an ambush involves lying in wait in a concealed position, a covered position, hidden in the hands of Yah, in a humble state, in the promise of Yah victory close to his heart. A place of intimate communion with Yahweh. The place for ambush were for the chosen, symbolizing refuge, protection, and personal connection. Refining to restored, right? Our purposes are realized abiding in Yah, abiding in the wilderness. So when we're here, our purpose is shown to us. So don't look at this place of the wilderness as a place of worry, as a place of dismay. As it starts out, do not worry, neither be thou dismayed. Amen. So when we talk about this ambush, I want y'all to keep that in mind, what that's really meaning. It's only considered a sneak attack to those who don't know that what's going on. It's an attack that is a defense strategy, right? All right, I'm on, and now we're going to keep on going. So while we're in this place of the wilderness, and after we've done what we need to do, as Yah commanded us to do, he now can look upon us. We're now recognizable, and we're now able to progress into the plan that Yah has for us, right? So now we're going to go to, I want to jump over to Psalms chapter 32. Psalms chapter 32. I'll tell you, this wind is kicking everything everywhere. All right, we go to Psalms 22, right? In Psalms 22, we're gonna zoom in. Psalms 32, I apologize. Psalms 32, we're gonna zoom in on just the first couple verses of what happened there, right? We're gonna see exactly exactly what happens when we go at that accursed thing, that thing that's not supposed to be involved with us, the thing's not supposed to be attached to us, the thing that's not supposed to be, as Achan did, put on the garment of the Babylonian ways. It's not even supposed to touch us at all. So Psalms 32, I'm going to start there, right? And it says, blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven. Remember, because they took out the accursed thing of Judah, of Yehovah, of what Achan did. So blessed is the man, blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth no iniquity, but instead righteousness, and in whose spirit there is no guile. When I kept silence, my bones waxed old through my roaring all the day long. Right? As in, when he kept silence, when you're resisting to admit your sin, right? When you're resisting to admit your sin, there's a standard that you're going back and forth with. You're getting tired of being, you're in a tested place, right? Your protection is withered away. So verse 3, when I kept silence, my bones waxed old through the roaring all the day long. That's you and Yah going back and forth. That's you and Yah. Yah saying, all right, you need to fix this, but you're not fixing this. That's you and Yah. Yah saying, all right, well, I'm going to need you to get this accursed thing about you. And you're like, no, you're going back and forth. You're being tested. You're tired of going back and forth. You're going through a spiritual dryness stage, right? In verse 4, for day and night thy hand was heavy upon me. My moisture is turned into a drought of summer. Boom. That's exactly what I was talking about. That spiritual dryness. Because the anointing, the waters is dried up. There was a cleansing necessary. Verse 5. I acknowledge my sin unto thee, and my iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto Yehovah, and thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin. Now, when it speaks on the iniquity of my sin, right? It's not just talking about sin in all. It's the transgression inside of the sin, right? So the iniquity of the sin, the iniquity is the type of sin that goes beyond a simple transgression, right? It's a deliberate choice that you made against Yah. It's deliberately standing against the will. And that is what the iniquity of the sin that has to be forgiven. Amen. For this shall everyone, verse 6, for this shall everyone that is holy pray unto thee in a time when thou mayest be found. Surely in the floods of great waters they shall not come nigh unto him. So in great waters, I want us to zoom in and focus in on great waters, right? So when the waters arise, we could do one of two things. When the waters arise, right, we could either be a vessel, as Noah was, as a way of escape, or we could go to the mountaintop, right? And the mountaintop is a place that's associated with promise. A mountaintop is a place that's associated with the presence of Yah, the direction, the power of the meeting point, the divine stability, right? It's a place where you are called by Yah. And the vessel can represent someone who is receptive. It's a vessel of salvation, right? It could be a boat, again, or even wisdom, right? So when the waters arise, you can either be the vessel that rises with the waters, or you can go to the point where you're in connection with Yah. You go to a point where you're praying with Yah. You're going to a point of a mountaintop. That's what a mountaintop is associated. Think of Mount Sinai, Moses and the commandments, Mount Zion, the temple of Yahashua, Mount of Olives with Yehoshua, right? There are sacrifices, guidance, wisdom, safety, and works towards eternity, right? The big we, the big us, the big we. This is what happens at the mountaintop as well, right? And remember the Sermon on the Mount, a great sermon on the mountaintop. Even Yehoshua went to a place where he was trying to get connected back, or not connected back. He stayed connected, but there was a place of connection that he was trying to imply to the people as well. There is such thing as meaning behind the mountaintop. So when the waters arise, you can either be the vessel, or you can go to the mountaintop. Now let's go back to Joshua chapter 8. Let's see where we're at. We're in verse 3. Yeah. After the ambush. So back to Joshua chapter 8, verse 3. So Joshua arose and all the people of war. Now that all the people are together, now that you got the curse thing, now we can move in unity with Reuben, Gad, Manasseh, right? And all the people of war to go up against Ai. And Joshua chose out 30,000 men of valor and sent them away by night. Now that 30 comes up again, because remember before we talked about the 30 and it represented Lamed, right? So it's emphasizing on Lamed yet again. As we come together, now we're back in tune. Now we're back in the connection with the righteous direction of the Father. Now we're nailed back to the connection of the Father, right? So now we're going to go to verse, let's see. Yeah, verse 3. 30,000 men of valor and sent them away by night. Verse 4. And he commanded them, saying, Behold, ye shall lie in wait against the city, even behind the city. Go not very far from the city, but be ye ready. And I and all the people that are with me will approach it to the city, and it shall come to pass when they come out against us, as at the first, that we will flee before them. For they will come out after us, till we have drawn them from the city. For they will say, They flee before us, as at the first. Therefore we will flee before them. Right? Verse 7, Ye shall rise up from the ambush and seize upon the city, for Yahweh Elohim will deliver it into your hand. Verse 8, And it shall be when ye have taken the city, that ye shall set the city on fire. That's the refining process. That's the place where wickedness has to be brought out. Because remember, we have Ai, which is associated with wickedness. Then we have Bethel, a place that's supposed to be righteous, but instead is associated with righteousness. So there's a refining, gleaning process that we had to get the people out of Bethel. We had to get the people out of Ai. We had to get all this wickedness. We're drawing all the wickedness out, heading towards the promise. That's part of the process. Part of our whole thing is removing the righteousness and putting us back in place of solidarity. Amen. So the second half of verse 8, according to the commandment of Yahweh shall ye do. See now that I have commanded you. Now we have another commandment. Now we have another task. Now things must be done. Amen. So now we're going to start about, this is the cool part I like right here. We're gonna have a little as I call it, we're gonna pull a little Minister Shante, because she be bringing out the map sometimes too. And this is the cool part. So as we have the map, I'm gonna read through, right? I'm gonna see how this shows up. Let's see. All right. So verse 9, it said, Joshua therefore set them forth, and they went to lie ambush and abode between Bethel and Ai, right? On the west side of Ai, or of Ai, but Joshua lodged that night among the people. So we got north, we got south, we got east, we got west, right? So on the west of Ai, that's where they sat there, and they formed that ambush, right? Yeah, on the west side of Ai, but Joshua lodged that night among the people. So they lodged over here on the west side of Ai. And Joshua rose up early in the rising and numbered the people and went up, and he and the elders of Yashrael before the people of Ai. All the people, even the people of war that were with him, went up and drew nigh and came before the city and pitched on the north side of Ai. So we got people over here, right? Then we got people over here, right? Now that's a sense of closing in. You see that? And all the people of war that were with him went up and drew nigh and came before the city and pitched on the north side of Ai. Now there was a valley between them and Ai. So now they got people over here on the west, they got people over here on the north. There's a valley right here now, right? A sense of closing in, as the hands of Yah does, right? And he took about 5,000 men. So 5,000, that means a lot. 5,000, that's something that was very, very famous that we did back in the day, right? Where we broke down into regiments of 5,000, right? Yehoshaphat fed 5,000. The importance of the need to trust in Yah is shown right there. Amen. So let's keep going. It's kind of cool to see what they did. And when they had set the people, even all the hosts was on the north of the city, right? So everybody was on the north of the city. And when they had set the people, even all the hosts that was on the north of the city, and their liers in wait on the west of the city, right, behind Ai. So now we got the people right here ready to go into Ai. Then we have the people right here as a distraction between Ai and Bethaven, right? And it came to pass when I saw that they hasted and rose up early, and the men of the city went out against Yahashrael to battle, and he and all his people at a time appointed before the plain, but he wist not, he knew not, that there were liars in ambush against him behind the city. Right? So right now what's happening is Joshua's right here. There's an ambush waiting in the west right here, right? So when they wake up and they see Joshua right here, they think, all right, boom, that's a distraction. But little do they know, there's people over here, right? They're about to close them in. Now we're going to go to verse 15. And Joshua and all of Yisrael made it as if they were beaten before them. They fled away to the wilderness, right? So I'm going to put this down for a second. I'm going to kind of go into what was going on. So say what Joshua was, okay? So Joshua's here, right? The wilderness is behind him, okay? So the king of Ai, he comes out, he sees Joshua right here. He sees the wilderness behind him. So what Joshua does, Joshua is going to act like, okay, I'm here. So that's all the king sees. So the king comes out against Joshua. What Joshua does with his people, he turns around, they run to the wilderness, acting like they're scared. They're running to the wilderness. But yet, over here in the wilderness, again, it's not a place of worry. It's a place of protection. It's a place of reason, right? So they run into the wilderness. And we're going to read it after I explain it, right? So they run into the wilderness, and the people come after them, right? Next thing you know, the people see smoke on Ai, right? They see smoke. The people turn back around and start going for the people that were laying in ambush, right? Joshua picks up a spear, points it, and the people go back after the people, right? And now we got it closing in, as in the hands, as in the cough of Yahweh, right? Until there's a point where everything's done. What's needed to understood doesn't have to be explained, right? So now let's keep going. So back in verse 15, now we're going to read everything that I was just talking about. And Joshua and all of Yisrael made it as if they were beaten before them. They fled by way of the wilderness. And all the people that were in Ai were called together to pursue after them. And they pursued after Joshua and were drawn away from the city. And there was not a man left in Ai or Bethel that went not after Yahashrael, right? And they left the city open and pursued after Yashrael. And Yahweh said unto Joshua, stretch out the spear that is in thy hand towards Ai. For I will give it into thine hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand towards the city. That spear representing power and authority, Yahweh's judgment. So they drew him out. Boom. They think, all right, but they think, okay, we got him again. Next thing you know, they smell it. They're like, what is that? What's that burning? But what that is a refining process. It's a sacrifice. So when they turn around and they see that, they start chasing after the people that were lying in ambush on the other side, because they done snuck into the city because we done drew them out, right? We're drawing out the righteousness of Bethel, the place that's supposed to be associated with righteousness. And then we're pulling people out of Ai, right? Right beside Bethaven, wickedness, okay? Let's see where we're at, verse 18. And Yahweh said unto Joshua, stretch out the spear that is in thy hand towards Ai, for I will give it into thy hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand towards the city. And the ambush arose quickly out of their place, and they ran as soon as he had stretched out his hand, and they entered into the city and took it, and hastened and set the city on fire. They refined it. So as soon as Joshua saw it, smelled it, said, all right, there it is. He lifted up the spear. The people saw that. Boom. That's when they handled business. And when the men of Ai looked behind them, they saw and behold the smoke of the city ascended up to Shamayim, ascended up to heaven. And they had no power to flee this way or that way. They closed in, right? And the people that fled to the wilderness turned back up upon the pursuers. And when Joshua and all of Yisrael saw that the ambush had taken the city, and that the smoke of the city had ascended, then they turned again and slew the men of Ai. And the other issued out the city against them. So they were in the midst of Yisrael, in the midst of refining, in the midst of getting out the wickedness that wasn't supposed to be there. We're drawing out the wickedness. We're going into the promise. We're cleaning up shop, essentially, right? Some on this side, some on that side, and they smote them so that they let none of them remain or escape. And the king of Ai they took alive and brought him to Joshua. And it came to pass when Yashrael had made the end of slaying and all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness, wherein they chased them. And when they were fallen on the edge of the sword, until they were consumed, that all of Yashrael, all the Israelites returned unto Ai, and smote it with the edge of the sword. Now we're going to stop right there. We're going to chill right there, right? We're going to talk about that sword. Now the sword, it can mean a lot of things. The sword, you really have three choices. The sword can be divine judgment, it could be division and conflict, or it could be protection and defense. It could be divine judgment for Yashrael, it could be division and conflict for Ai and Bethel, or it could be protection and defense. The choice is yours, right? That's the importance of following the commandments. All the Babylonish ways must be cut off. Spiritual warfare essentially is what that is. The emotional, the physical, the mental, and the physical, right? Because the emotional being what sparks it, right? The initial pull. The mental is the warring back and forth, and the physical affects the body. The fight over, again, spiritual relapse, right? I'm on. Let's keep going. Yep, and returned unto Ai and smote it with the edge of the sword. And so it was, verse 25, and so it was, all that fell on that day, both of men and women, were 12,000, even all the men of Ai. For Joshua drew not his hand back, wherewith he stretched out the spear. The power of authority was not dragged back. Yahweh's judgment continued until it had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Complete desolation. There's a difference between cutting off and making desolate, right? There's a big difference, because you don't just cut something off without making it desolate. Because if you cut something off, right, it could potentially still be somewhere in the body. It has to be a complete desolation of a thing. It has to be a thing that did not come back at all, ever again, right? That is the point of what we're going through. Amen. Only the cattle and the spoil of that city Yahashrael took for a prey unto themselves, according to the word of Yahweh, which he commanded Joshua. Joshua burnt Ai and made it a heap forever, even a desolation. There we go, a desolation until this day. Ai meaning a heap of ruins, right? Verse 29. We're not going to read for TikTok purposes, but essentially what happened there is they handle business, right? They handle business upon a great heap of stones, upon a great heavy work, a great sacrifice to that day, right? In verse 30, then Joshua built an altar to Yahweh Elohim of Yashrael unto Mount Ebal, right? So now let's go back to the map. So they went from here. They handled everything they had to do in Beth Haven and Ai. And remember, over here it's the Jordan. So they came from the Jordan through Jericho. Here's Jericho right here. To Ai. They laid in their wait in the west with the ambush. And on the north, that's where Joshua was. They pulled people out of Bethel. They pulled people out of Ai, and they're handling business. They're drawing out the wickedness, right? And then we go up north to Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, right? So we can kind of definitely see, that's what's pretty cool, like to see where they actually went to, from the Jordan through Jericho up to Ai, Beth Haven, and Bethel, and continue north all the way up to where they're supposed to be to make the sacrifice, right? So now we're going to keep reading, keep that in mind, because when we keep reading, we're going to show exactly what, they're going to tell exactly what they did there. Exactly what they did there. One sec. So let's go back to Joshua. This is wind blowing my pages everywhere. Let's go back to Joshua. Chapter 8. All right, verse 30. Then Joshua built an altar unto Yahweh Elohim of Israel in Mount Ebal. And Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded the children of Yashrael, as it is written in the book of law of Moses, an altar of whole stones over which no man had lifted up any iron, because it cannot be anything that is refined or remade. So you got to pick up things that's already there. So say if you pick up, say this is a stone. If you pick up this stone, you cannot chip away this stone. You cannot shape this stone. You cannot chisel this stone. That stone must be placed on an altar. And what you get after that must be placed on top of that. Placed on top of that. Not touched. Not altered in any way. That is the altar, right? And also between Bethel and Ai, if you remember before, Abraham also came over there and made a sacrifice, made an altar right there as well. Just random cool little fact. So we got verse 31. And Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded the children of Yashrael, as it is written in the book of law of Moses, an altar of whole stones over which no man had lifted up any iron, and they offered thereon burnt offerings unto Yahweh, and sacrificed peace offerings. Verse 32. And he wrote there upon the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he wrote in the presence of the children of Yashrael. And Israel and the elders and officers and the judges stood on the side of the ark, on that side before the priests and the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, as well the stranger as he that was born against them among them. Half of them over against the mount of Gerizim, remember, and half of them over on the other side on Mount Ebal, as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had commanded before that they should bless the people of Yashrael. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessings and the cursings, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded, which Joshua read not, in totality. Now mind you, this is not just the laws that Moses had, but this is the law since creation. This is the law from the beginning. So all these laws, all these statutes, all these commandments, all were necessary to be held to this day. Not one jot nor tittle shall be changed until the passing away of heaven and earth, right? So they're taking all this with them. Everything that came with it to this point, right? Everything had to, not one thing changed. That's what we had to do. We had to make sure that everything we've had from our ancestors, from the previous teachers, prophets, we do not change any of that law. With the women and the little ones and the strangers that were conversing among them. So just to go back through, right? I want you to keep in mind the wilderness, the sword, the spear, the ambush. The wilderness, where there's a place of protection, there's a place of refining, right? Ambush, it involves lying in wait in a concealed position, hiding in the hands of Yah in a humble state, in the promise of Yah of victory, close to his heart. The spear, the authority of Yahweh, all necessary to carry with us on this walk that we are on